here. Welcome to the latest episode of the weekly Roundup podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Frank Bonada. We're about to preview UFC Vegas 41, headlined by Paulo Costa against Marvin Vettori. At least we hope it will be, because there's all kinds going on in this fight week. First, how's it going, Frank?
Yeah, it's going good, mate. Happy to have another solid, well, not a solid card, but it's a step up from the few we've had recently, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll jump straight into it, because this main event, it's a great fight. You know, what we've been missing lately is the main events. We've had, less than stacked cards with pretty poor main events, and that's putting it nicely. This one certainly delivers. It's a middleweight, contender fight. I think the winner of this is potentially one fight away from another title shot. But then Paulo Costa decides to turn up to fight week 211 pounds and just straight out says, "I'm not making middleweight. Let's do it at a different weight." So what you make of what's going on?
Yeah, it's the Nick Diaz effect, isn't it? Now he's set a precedent, and Paulo Costa's seen that. I don't understand how he's come in so heavy. It's considering they signed the bout agreement in August, I believe. And in fact, he had another fight booked back then as well, so he should really be in, some level of fight camp throughout the time. I don't understand how he's come in so heavy. He said there's some sort of reason. I'm sure it'll come out after the fight, but for the time being, it looks like we're getting a catch weight of 190, 195, something like that. It is what it is, but he should defo have like a big purse deduction in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I was just watching the joint interview and that he did on ESPN with Vettori, and he's like, "You should be taking money off me." Like he's get very brazen lately in terms of, coming off that Adesanya loss. He was asking for more money, withdrawing from a fight. I think he's creating a bit of division with the UFC, and I honestly think, he loses here and looks bad. That might be the end of him in the UFC. They might just cut the losses and decide that, we don't want to be in the Paulo Costa business. It's too much hassle, and he's not necessarily worth the hassle, or as good as the hassle, suggests he might be. So I think a lot is on the line here for Paulo Costa.
Yeah, 100%. You know what? I was just thinking, if he does part ways with the UFC, and he's been talking about going up to light heavyweight, if he goes over to Bellator, that light heavyweight division is going to be so strong. But yeah, I don't know. He's always been very outspoken, hasn't he? That's just sort of the Paulo Costa way. But he didn't take that Adesanya loss well, both with asking for more money afterwards, and then he lost a lot of fans to the whole excuses of the wine and whatnot. And now coming to this, you've seen him on like social media, he's getting ridiculed, like properly. People are going in on him because of this weight miss. And like you say, he's so brazen about it that yeah, he's not getting many fans at the moment. But we'll see if he pulls off an amazing performance against Vettori. Maybe he'll win some of them back.
Yeah, I think that's what he definitely needs to do. And either way, I think the move is to light heavyweight, because he is one of them guys you look at and you think, how the hell is he ever making 185? But
yeah,
just a pure disregard for making the weight. I think he understands that he kind of got the UFC over a barrel, but then at the same time, are they going to book him in the main event again? He's withdrawn from 2. He's failed to make weight on this 3rd one. Like I think the UFC will not take kindly to this, and we'll move on from all that stuff. The outside the fight itself is a banger. Whatever way it takes place at, it's going to be great. How do you see it playing out?
Well, I feel like we actually have to take some of that outside stuff into the fight with us, because first of all, cardio, you got to wonder, if he's struggling to make weight. Now, I'm not sure if it's a case of him saying, let's do it at 195 or 205, whatever it is, so that he's comfortable and not cutting as much weight, which means maybe better cardio, or it is a case of that's the very limit he can reach. But we have seen him gas in the past as well. I mean, I was going to use the Romero example, but if you remember that fight, those men just went, they left everything in the cage in that fight. But either way, Marvin Vettori has shown that he can go 5 rounds multiple times in his career. He's done Hermanson, Adesanya, and I suppose Holland, but that was a weird one. So yeah, I think cardio is going to be a big thing. Maybe if he does have this weight advantage, he'll hit harder potentially. But the thing is, we all know Marvin Vettori is one of the most durable fighters in the division, if not in the whole UFC. Yeah, the man can get hit by anything. He just keeps going. Stylistically, it's an interesting one because they fight kind of similarly. I think Paulo Costa, at least when he's on weight, is the better athlete. You know, I mean, you just have to look at him to see that. But I mean, I've rewatched the Romero fight today, and just the amount of output that he's throwing early on, and I think in some of his fights he doesn't necessarily look a power puncher, but more of a I don't want to call him a volume puncher, but he takes when he knocks people out quite often, it's in flurries. So he just releases a bunch of punches, all with like a high power level, and then knocks them down. You saw like Uriah Hall and Johnny Hendricks as well. But the thing is, I don't think those sort of punches are going to be able to get Vettori out of the fight. I know he does love going to the body as well, which I do appreciate. But the thing is, I feel like Vettori's got more tools in this fight. He's an okay offensive wrestler. I think, you know, he's got a few submissions on his record, and he doesn't mind taking it to the ground. And he's not averse to utilizing a good leg kick every now and then as well, which, as we saw against Adesanya, really froze Costa up. So I'm leaning towards Vettori in this fight. What about you?
Yeah, I'm definitely Vettori. I think, well, the weight miss or the inability to make weight, it does favour Costa. I don't think the weight cut does anything for him. I honestly think it hinders him. When you're talking about cardio issues, it probably hinders his cardio. He's a big guy, and sucking all that weight, putting it all back, it's just not good for him. So whatever happens, I think he's going to light heavyweight. But for me, this fight has got Vettori written all over it. I think he'll dominate as long as he survives the early flurry, as you mentioned. I think he should dominate this fight, and I think he'd probably get a stoppage, you know, within 3 rounds. If he can get this fight to the floor and dominate him in that way, I can see it happening. And Paulo Costa, it's also I think his record is somewhat deceiving because it's not as impressive as it might look. You know, Uriah Hall, how highly do you rate him? For me, not highly at all. I think Uriah struggled with a very old Anderson Silva, got beat to crap by Sean Strickland. It's not that impressive. Johnny Hendricks, obviously he was way done by this point. Romero, that's the best win of the bunch, but it was very controversial. It was a very tight decision. Could have went either way. And then since then, Romero's not exactly looked like a killer, has he? He's on a 4-fight losing streak. So, like, how do you weigh up these wins and how?
Well,
so for me, there's still questions about how good is Costa. And I think Vettori, I know how good he is. He is just shy of world class, you know, in terms of matching someone like Adesanya. Whereas I'm actually not sure how good Costa is quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, I know exactly what you mean, and that was sort of my argument going into the Adesanya fight when the two fought. I was like, you know, he's fought maybe 2 high-level opponents so far, that being Hall and Romero. And yeah, like you say, the Romero fight was controversial, but I will say so you made the point that Romero has maybe fallen off a bit as of late, and you can use the Adesanya fight and Phil Davis in Bellator. Yeah, that was the fight, wasn't it? He's not sort of engaged these people as much as he could have. The thing is, when Costa fought Romero, he fought Romero, you know, at his own game. He pressed forward, he forced the fight, and I don't know. Like I said, I've rewatched that fight today, and it's sort of, I don't know if it's giving me recency bias or what, but he did look impressive, and he was able to go strike for strike with Romero, who's one of the hardest hitters in the division, and one of the most durable fighters in the division. But I don't know, and that's what makes me second guess my pick for Vettori a little bit, just because you know Vettori will press forward as well, and engage in those sort of maybe not firefights, but almost more like shootouts. You know, they're like he loves his boxing, does Vettori, and Costa is a little bit more well-rounded. One more thing I did want to say from that Romero fight that I took from it Romero shot for multiple takedowns, even just in the first round alone, and Costa looked really good. He was pulling him up into clinches and looked on an equal strength level to Romero. You know, Romero is a super athlete. And then one thing, if you look at Vettori, Adesanya, after their fight, he noted that he didn't think, Vettori wasn't nearly as strong in those clinch exchanges as he thought he would be. So I do wonder if if Vettori is able to utilize that sort of wrestling side of the game, because if he's not, then the fight might have a sort of different angle to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be scary on the feet for a while because, as you mentioned, Vettori he likes to box. He's got a good chin, but you don't want to be overly reliant on it. But I think as soon as he'll probably have to try hard for the takedown, but I think as soon as he gets it, I think Costa might fold and potentially give up as soon as he hits the mat. I just don't think he's maybe in the right, mindset to be in this big of a situation. I think Vettori's chin, whatever happens, will hold up. When we seen him against Holland, who's a huge puncher, he looked very assured in the stand-up exchanges. He didn't bother him, whereas Derek Brunson, every time he got hit by Holland, it looked like it might be over. So I think Vettori, a combination of factors, the fact that just his whole attitude to fighting in comparison to Paulo Costa, it is chalk and cheese. I think he is very serious about fighting. Paulo Costa, based off recent evidence, probably isn't. Vettori's got the chin. I think he's got the wrestling, and I think he just wants it more. I think that's what it'll come down to on fight night. But as you said, Costa in spurts has looked brilliant, and I'm just not convinced yet how good he is. But he might just prove me and every other doubter wrong and go out there and starch Vettori, and then everyone's back on the hype train. You never know, but it's exciting to watch. This is really a good main event, and it's been a while since we've had one.
Yeah, it's true. The last thing I'd like to bring up on this topic is the mental side of things. In the past, Marvin Vettori, we've seen him be really emotional going through those fights. Against Adesanya, I thought, I never thought he was going to win the fight, but I thought the sort of, he let his emotions take over a bit and might have lost him more rounds than he actually would have had he not been so emotionally invested in it. Now, in this fight, seeing him in the pre-fight interviews and, like you said, the ESPN with Costa as well, he seems okay with it, even with his opponent missing weight. He seems level-headed and calm, and that's quite normal for most fighters, but for Marvin Vettori, it's not. Normally he's shouting and spitting and going full on, and he's taking it easy, whereas Costa, obviously, the mental fact that he's not even going to hit weight is a factor, and it did seem that Israel Adesanya broke him to an extent when the two men fought. He's coming up with the whine excuses, and even just in the fight, Costa is a fighter who always comes forward and is relentlessly aggressive, and Adesanya just broke him down both physically and mentally. So I wonder how much, because you mentioned before, if Vettori brings him to the ground and really starts to assert his top control, maybe Costa will just break. And I do wonder if that is a legitimate is something that's going to legitimately impact this fight.
Yeah, and it's the first loss like syndrome type thing, isn't it? Costa is one of them guys who's been able to starch pretty much everyone. He goes in, he gets absolutely obliterated, dominated, embarrassed by someone, and then he's got to come back, and I don't feel like he's the same. Everything that's been going on lately, all are negative signs towards Costa, whereas Vettori seems to have gone the other route from his loss to Adesanya. Number one, he was more competitive. Adesanya didn't look fantastic that night. He just dealt with Vettori, who just didn't have enough on the night, but he weren't able to shine Adesanya. So that's a win for Vettori right there. He's 20, I think he's 28 years old, something like that, very young. So he'll be back. Whereas Costa, he didn't show anything in that fight. He got dominated, got stopped. So I think it is, again, chalk and cheese in terms of how they've dealt with the loss, who has grown. And I guess we'll find out on fight night, but all signs to me point towards Marvin Vettori. as the man who's come out better. And as you said, he looks calmer. And that was one thing that I know he wants it. And I think that's a good thing. But sometimes he wants it too much. And I think in that Adesanya fight, it got the better of him. But in this fight, he seems to cool. Even on the chat, he was like cracking jokes, saying to Costa, you're drunk, and laughing at his response and all these things. So I think on paper, this is a 50-50 fight. It's a really competitive fight. But, you know, when you take all these things into consideration, I think my money personally all goes on Vettori then, because, you know, that's the deciding factor. And I think it will be on fight night. But, yeah, bang it either way. And we'll move on because we've spent quite a bit of time on that. And we've got a load of fights. I'm not even going to count them, but there's a load of them. And in the co-main event, we've got Grant Dawson against Rick Glenn. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm quite high on Grant Dawson. Is it Leo Santos, the last win he had? I rate Leo Santos quite highly, and that finish was brutal. Whereas Ricky Glenn, I mean, he had, how many years was it? A good 3 years out from the game completely, working some sort of side job. I can't remember what it was, that painter or something like that. He comes back and knocks out Joaquin Silva in the first round. It's an interesting one. It gives me Sayukian versus Christius Giagos vibes a little bit, in that Giagos is quite a good fighter, but he was only one fight back into the UFC as well, when he took on Sayukian. And Sayukian is one of the hottest prospects in the division. I'm not sure if he's ranked. He's either 15th or just outside the top 15. And similar can be said for Grant Dawson. And obviously we saw Sayukian starched him in the first round, second round, whatever. I like Ricky Glenn, and I think he could be good once he gets properly back into it. But I think it's a hard fight for him to step up from Joaquin Silva to Grant Dawson. I'm quite heavy on the Grant Dawson side on this one.
Yeah, I think you've got to take all these things into consideration again. 3 years off, he's had 37 seconds. It's that Conor McGregor thing, isn't it? Coming back, looking sensational against Donald Cerrone, but it was done within 60 seconds. Then you go and fight, Dustin Poirier, and there is levels to this game. I think Dawson is not going to go away and that quickly. He's not going to go away in the first round, or the first minute, or even the first round. So I think he'll stick at it. I think he's going to look good. I think last fight was acid test. He was on his way to losing that one, and he managed to pull out the bag last second. So he's got the heart as well as the skills, and he's 27 years old. He's on a huge win streak. It really is hard to back against him in this one. It's just about how much Glenn can push him, and it'd be interesting to see, because Dawson's got it all. If he looks fantastic again in this one, another performance bonus, he really is starting to make some noise in that division.
I'd love a matchup between him and Sayukian, actually. That would be a good one. But yeah, you're right. He does. I'm just looking at his record right now, and he's a very competent striker, but most of his finishes come by way of submission. So yeah, in fact, including a submission over Darek Minner, who he's known for his grappling prowess. He's also undefeated in the UFC right now. I just think I don't want to discredit Glenn, because I think he's a good fighter. But this is somewhat of a fight, so the UFC can be like, oh, he's on a 6-fight winning streak inside the UFC. He needs a ranking by his name. It's their excuse to get him into those rankings. Probably match him up with, I don't know, Gillespie, someone like that next, if he gets the win. Yeah, it's just, Glenn has a chance, but the thing is, I kind of think it's a puncher's chance, and I think Grant Dawson is an incredibly durable fighter as well. So, I lean quite heavily towards Grant Dawson.
Yeah, and the thing about Dawson's wins are all really impressive wins. They might be outside the rankings, but Julian Erosa's a good win. We've seen how great he's looked lately. Trezano has also got a few good wins. I think he's got a win over Pena. Who else has he got?
He got Klein, Ludwig Klein.
Yeah, Klein. Even Joe Giannetti, who
Yeah.
You know, good fighter. You know, that's it. You know, it's a good fighter. Derek Minnan, as you just said, he's been subbing people left and right. So, and again, Leonardo Santos. So, yeah, I think it is heavily in the favour of Dawson, but at the same time, he is young. He's pretty green. Glenn is a tough out. It's not an easy fight, and I think that's why it's, you know, so high up the card. And before that, we've got Jessica Rose Clark against Jocelyn Edwards. What do you make of this one?
In all honesty, on the whole card, this is the one fight that I don't really have a read on, to be honest. I haven't seen too much of Jessica Rose Clark. She's like a Muay Thai base, isn't she? Yeah. In all honesty, I don't really know what to make of it. And Jocelyn Edwards is still relatively new to the UFC, I believe. Yeah. She had a win over Yanan Wu. It's an interesting one. I reckon it seems like it'll go on the feet. I don't have a read on it, to be honest. I'll be straight with you. I have no idea who's going to win. I know there's quite a lot of hype behind Jessica Rose Clark. So it could be a case of the UFC trying to set her up for bigger things in the future. I don't know. How do you see it?
I quite like Jocelyn Edwards when she made her debut. It was I think she had really slick striking, but then she went and lost to Carol Rosa. So I think these divisions, is this bantamweight, this one? Let me have a look. Yeah, that's bantamweight. They're just, like I always say this, especially with the flyweight division, but this bantamweight division is pretty similar. They're at a certain level, you've got Nunes, then Holm, and then everyone else. And I feel like on the day, they can all beat each other. So these fights are usually 50-50. They usually go 3 rounds, and they usually split decisions or very tight decisions. So I wouldn't want to give too much of a prediction. I did like Jocelyn Edwards. I think she looked good in her debut. She looked slick. But again, Jessica Rose Clark's got that pedigree in terms. She's got some good wins. You know, Paige Van Zant's on the record, I think. Becca Rollins. Well, she got Sarah Alper last time out.
Sarah Alper, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah. I think, again, 50-55. I would edge towards Edwards, but honestly, it's a 51%, 49% in my head. This could go either way. And again, it's not one of the fights I'm particularly like psyched for. Well, we'll move on. And before that, someone I'm always psyched to watch is Alex Caceres. I think he's truly underrated. I think he's been a brilliant, fights to have on the UFC roster. I think this might be his 20th fight or something like that in the UFC. He's put together a 4-fight win streak all of a sudden, and all of a sudden he's making moves, and standing in his way this time is Woo Choi. Woo Choi. How do you see this one going?
I mean, as much as I love Bruce Leroy, Sung Woo Choi has looked incredible since entering the UFC. His fight against Julian Erosa, I'm a huge Julian Erosa fan, and I went into it being like, oh yeah, he's just going to rack up another win. But no, Sung Woo Choi became like one of the first people in recent memory to actually knock out Julian Erosa, who's known for being, he's known for getting hit early and then coming back. That's his thing. But Woo Choi just did not let him. It was a brutal knockout. Left him like fully unconscious by the end of it, which is a rare thing to happen to Julian Erosa. He's also got wins over Yusuf Salal, who looked like an incredible prospect for like a lot of 2020, and then has sort of fallen off as of late. As well as Suman Mokhtarian, which is not bad. Oh yeah, he came into the UFC and fought Movsar Evloev and then Gavin Tucker, which was just murderer's row entry. Yeah, I think it's kind of, I don't know. I think Sung Woo Choi is a better fighter when it comes to the striking. I think he's just hits harder. I think he's got cleaner technique. And I think he's probably faster as well, to be honest. However, I haven't really seen his ground game tested as much. I know Evloev was able to out wrestle him, but I mean, Bruce Leroy is a different sort of ground fighter to that. He's much more, he leans on the BJJ more than the wrestling side of it, I suppose. But he's also very good in the clinch. So it's an interesting one. It's very interesting, to be honest. I'm leaning towards Woo Choi. I think he's going to win the fight via KO. But there's a lot of interesting sort of, just techniques that Caceres can bring to this fight. He's so unorthodox that maybe that clash of Wu Choi is so set in his correct techniques and everything, and Caceres is just so unorthodox. That's the word to describe Alex Caceres. He is unorthodox, and who knows what he could end up throwing into the mix. And you've also got to remember there is a submission threat from Caceres. He tapped out Chase Hooper, who's also known for his BJJ. So, to be honest, for me, it's a bit of a litmus test for Wu Choi. Caceres is a veteran. He's on a winning streak. Been looking great. But for me, Wu Choi is the big upcoming prospect in this fight.
Yeah, I think it is. It's another one of them where you acid test them. You know, we've seen Chase Hooper come in against Caceres and he got outboxed for the whole fight. Yeah, and that was a tough watch to be fair. You know, and I think Choi is more of a complete prospect, but at the same time, there's still questions to be asked. And I think if he gets through this fight, I don't see him stopping Caceres. I think it's one KO loss in 33 fights for Caceres, so it's going to be tough to do that. And if he does that, that's huge. I think he's going to have to survive 3 rounds, maybe some dicey moments. But Caceres got that submission threat. If he can get this floor, you can see Gavin Tucker's got a submission win over Choi. So, you know, he might fancy it. And, that's 5 in a row. And then it all starts to, pile up for him. This would be a huge win. But it's hard not to fancy Choi. I think, as we've just said, Julian Rosa, we've been impressed with him lately. We've seen what Choi did to him. To go out and dominate Caceres, I think, is what's probably going to happen. I think he'll be able to dictate the pace and pick up a decision win pretty dominantly. But then the threat's always there, and Caceres has been putting it all together. And this might be a peak. This might be his peak, and this might be his time. So, very interesting. It's been good to watch Choi bounce back from them first 2 losses in the UFC, and he's looked fantastic. And as we said, that featherweight division, even outside the top 15, it's so fun down there. There's lots going on, and this is just another one of them. An absolute banger of a fight.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think we've pretty much broken it down now. That's the way of it. I mean, either man could make a case for breaking into the top 15, or maybe like a top 15 fight that would, a fight that would propel them next into the top 15. Maybe someone on the outskirts, like who's there, like Sadiq Youssef, Bryce Mitchell. Mitchell's too much of a prospect. I don't know. Yeah. It's just an exciting time for featherweight, to be honest. It's one of those, everyone always talks about lightweight and bantamweight. And I'm just like, look at the fighters in that featherweight roster. It's some really high-level potential matchups to be made.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And we'll move on. Dwight Grant, Francisco Trinaldo. Got an opinion on this one?
Yeah, Trinaldo. I lean quite heavily towards him. I'm not... I think Dwight Grant's okay. I think he hits hard, but I think he has bad cardio issues. And, everyone knows Francisco Trinaldo. I think, did he fight quite recently? No, maybe.
His last fight was in
August,
June, and he lost by decision.
Yeah. I just think Trinaldo's better. I think he's going to just out cardio him. It'll last longer. He hits very hard. Dwight Grant hits hard too. But I don't think Grant's going to be able to put Trinaldo out of there. And I think he's just going to start pouring it on from the second round onwards, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm edging towards Grant in this one. You know what? Yeah. I'm something of an ageist. I think when I look at these fighters and I see a 43-year-old fighter, and he's never been knocked out, and then you're putting him in with a puncher like Grant, I think this might be the time for it. If I'm looking for maybe a long odds bet, maybe this is the time someone catches Trinaldo. Obviously, he's cutting down to welterweight, which is pretty new for him. He didn't look sensational last time, although he was in a tough fight. Maybe welterweight's not the fight for him. I mean, he's bulking up to welterweight,
bulking up, yeah.
And maybe it's not the weight for him. Maybe, can he take a punch at this weight? If this is a new weight, this is the first time he's been in with a welterweight puncher. There is a difference. 15 pounds weight, granted, is a huge puncher. So I can see what you're saying.
Welterweight.
I can see what you're saying in terms that he might be able to survive that flurry, work his way to decision. I absolutely see that too. But then there's just a sneaky feeling in my head that Dwight Grant might actually catch him in this one. So that's a fun fight on the undercard. And Dwight Grant's no spring chicken himself. He's 37, but if he can crack him, maybe. I guess we'll find out.
We will.
And before that, rounding off the main card is a 6-fight main card. So we've got Ike Villanueva against Nikolai. Oh, I'm gonna murder this name. Yeah. Nekamarianu.
Negamarianu, I think.
Oh, nice. Negamarianu. Yeah, I like Ike Villanueva, but I've interviewed him a few times. He's a lovely fella, and I'm like rooting for him to go in and kind of get some momentum going. But he got that big win over Vinicius Moreira, big win, first one in the UFC. Then he goes and loses to Pacquiao, and Pacquiao's actually looked decent lately, so there's no shame in that. You know, he got that win over Khalil round 2, looked fantastic last time against Modestas Bukauskas. So yeah, I know, such a shame. And so I am rooting for Ike. I really like him. He's a lovely guy. Can he turn it around in this one?
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat as you. I've been interviewed Ike a few times, and he's just the nicest guy. Always tries chatting to me about rugby and stuff. Yeah, to be honest, I don't really have a read on this fight. Negamarianu, yeah, he's got the win over Kamer last time out. I feel like the UFC is quite high on him, which I don't really understand why. Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Ike is everyone, his nickname, Hurricane Ike. He just has that one-punch knockout power. We also saw it against Vinicius Moreira. Yeah, I haven't really got a read on it apart from seeing a KO victory from Ike. I wonder if he can stay competitive for the full 3 rounds if it comes to it, because I feel like Negamarianu is very much a decision fighter. I say that, I'm looking at his record now. It's just stoppage after stoppage. Yeah, I'll be backing Ike, but I don't really have a proper read for it, to be honest.
Yeah, I am going to Nikolai. I think that Kamer fight was a tough fight for him, but I think in spirit he looked really good. It was more I think he was more the brawler type, which could bring out the best out of Ike as well. So interesting one. I do think it is all kind of geared up for Nikolai to go and get that win. I'm probably going to get cut after this one if he loses, but this is what the UFC, this is why you have these fights, because you see it, like, he's got a huge opportunity, you know, he's only got one defeat, Nikolai, he's coming off a good win. So here's like a chance, and we've seen it with Alessio Di Riccardo against Joaquin Buckley. You know, all the odds are stacked against him. He goes in and starts him. So, and especially at these heavyweights, we could see it happen, but I do lean Nikolai. And that pretty much wraps up the main card. So we'll move on to this undercard, and we won't focus on every fight, but what stands out to you on this undercard?
Well, I mean, first of all, Mason Jones. From the UK. I mean, I live in Wales at the moment, so you got a rep for the Welsh boys. And yeah, he's had a bit of a bumpy start to his UFC career. Back in obviously Cage Warriors, he was lightweight and welterweight champion, I believe. Obviously, incredible action fight with what was his name, Mike Davis. That to be honest, I scored for Davis. In all honesty, it was a close fight. And both men left it all in the cage. Yeah, it was just a lot of fun to watch. But he did look a little bit sloppy in places, I think is the word. You know, some of his technique left him, and he went into the full brawler mode. Then he came back this year against Alan Patrick, and was just tearing him apart. Like it was a slaughter until he accidentally eye pokes him. Now I don't know, who am I to say if Alan Patrick played it up a little bit, but the fight gets called off, no contest. They're initially booked for a rematch. Alan Patrick drops out. Thankfully, though, they've managed to keep Mason on the card, and he's fighting David Onama. I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea who Onama is. He's an 8-0 prospect with a lot of finishes on his record. In fact, all finishes on his pro record. So yeah, I just want to see Mason Jones back in action, in all honesty. He is such a fun fighter, and the potential, the roof of his potential is so high.
Yeah, I think he's definitely one of the most exciting prospects we've got, but the rest of the world probably aren't seeing that, because they just look at his record and he's one loss and one no contest in the UFC, and doesn't make good reading. And I spoke to him as well in the build up to his second fight with Patrick, and you know, he's bummed about it, but he's determined to get in this win column. I think this is a really good chance for him. I think he would have done it against Patrick anyway. But
yeah,
you know, I think as we're looking at David's record, it says he's going to be probably dangerous in the early goings, and Mason needs to, you know, dip and dive and just get out the way of the power, survive the early goings, and then he should take over and probably get a stoppage pretty quickly. You know, obviously Onama has taken this on late notice. He is an undefeated prospect, so he's going to come in, you know, all guns blazing, full of confidence, and try and take Mason Jones out. It'd be a huge, you know, scalp for him. You know, dual weight Cage Warriors champion, huge. I just don't see it happening. I think Mason is too good. I think he will prove it. He'll survive maybe a couple early shots. He's clearly got a brilliant chin, so no issues there. And he'll come out and he'll get that first UFC win, and he can move on into 2022. Then, you know, with where he should be in the win column. You know, he's too talented to be on a 2-fight like without a win streak or whatever you call it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him back in there. Back in the win column, long overdue, and just a shame it's not Alan Patrick and he gets to right that wrong, but still, an exciting prospect, and David Onama, who I'm sure will deliver down the road. Just on a week's notice, it's going to be tough against one, in my opinion, one of the best prospects in the UFC. Full stop.
100%. Yeah, exactly.
What else have we got on this card?
Jai Herbert is back. He's always going to have a place in my heart because back when I was working with LowKick all the time, he was my first ever interview with a UFC fighter full stop. So I'm always been rooting for him. And he's had a rough start to the UFC, fighting the aforementioned Trinaldo in his debut, which is just brutal. And then Renato Moicano next, who's a former title challenger at featherweight, moved up to lightweight now. Those are two very high level opponents for him to step in and face. And now I feel like someone like Kama Worthy, who he's going to be fighting, Worthy is dangerous, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's a more acceptable level for someone who's still, you know, he's not used to competing at, but he's used to competing at Cage Warriors level. And, you know, obviously there's a lot of prospects and veterans at Cage Warriors, but the UFC is, of course, a step up. That's why people go from Cage Warriors to the UFC. And yeah, Kama Worthy is, well, he either knocks people out or gets knocked out. And to be honest, it's kind of a similar situation for Jai. But I do think he's a better striker, and I think he is more durable than Kama. So yeah, I think this, similar to Jones, to be honest, this is the fight that he turns his UFC career around and starts living up to that prospect title that he entered the UFC with in the first place.
Yeah, I think this is a more reasonable fight. I'm assuming that Herbert's kind of went in and asked for these big fighters. Obviously, he's 30 years old. He's got the pedigree. He probably just wants to try and jump the queue, and it hasn't worked out. You know, Trinaldo, he was doing well but got caught. Moicano, he was never in that fight, and Moicano was looked great. You know, even in the Fiziev fight where he got knocked out, he did look good in that fight, and we all know how good Fiziev is. So, no shame in these. And Kama Worthy, again, it's not an easy fight. You know, he come into the UFC, got a win over Devontae Smith, big win. Luis Pena, another big win, subbed him in the third round. So, but then it just hasn't gone right. And as I saw, big puncher, Malaki, another one. So for me, this is a really good 50-50 fight, and I think Jai needs to survive the early flurry and use, you know, he is a striker, he can take people out himself, but he, in my opinion, he's more technical, and I think he could point fighters' way to victory in this one as well. I think he can win this fight, but he just needs to be careful in terms of trading it up with Kama Worthy, because, you know, he can knock people out. He is a powerful puncher. And I just want to see Jai in the win streak as well, because he's another lovely fella who's got all the talent in the world, and the fact that he doesn't have a UFC win yet is criminal. So hopefully he gets it. Hopefully Mason Jones gets it, and yeah, good night for the UK this weekend.
100%. Yeah. Well, I haven't got too much more to say on that one. I'm just really hoping Jai gets the win finally. And to be honest, I reckon if you're a betting man, the way to go is doesn't go the distance. Because I know you said you think Jai might be getting the point fighting victory, but I think if Worthy doesn't finish it early, his chin just can't hold up. Even if Jai fights in a point fighting style, I think Worthy's going to slow down, and the accumulation is going to build up, and maybe it's like a third round stoppage or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's got the power and the pinpoint accuracy to take him out in that manner. So I hope that's what we see. But you trade it up with Conor Worthy, it's a recipe for disaster. So hopefully he doesn't do that. And hopefully we see him back in the win column. Besides that, we've got Jun Young Park against Gregory Rodriguez. Pretty interesting fight. Jeff Molina is always fun. Who else we got? Tavon Richie. It's a stacked card. I think there's about 12, 13, 14 fights on this card. So that one, and it's definitely better than the last few weeks. And we've got the main event. Hopefully, by all accounts, the main event's going on. And below that, we've got some fun fights, and it's been great breaking it down with you, Frank.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, mate. I'm looking forward to it, and it's at UK times, so it's a good one.
It's a nice one again. The treating as well lately, even though the cards aren't that great, at least they're at normal times. So cannot complain.
It's a good time to be a UK fan.
We'll wrap it up because that's pretty much everything I've got to say. Do you want to add anything?
No, that's it, to be honest, mate.
Good. Well, thanks for joining us, guys, for the latest episode of the Weekly Roundup podcast. We'll be back next week to preview UFC 267. Can't wait for that one. Thanks, Frank, and speak to you soon.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.